Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right, let's pull up this screen. All right, looks like we got one safety that decommitted, and we got one safety that may stay. So we're going to go through that. We're also going to talk about the transfer portal. And at the end of this, I'm going to go over not only the transfer portal, but also my theory as to why not many of the recruits that are out there, over 1,000, have committed to very many teams, including the Vols. And I'm going to discuss that entire theory, which I think makes sense. You might think that as well. But let's get into this decommitment. And this is all about Sylvester Smith. He has decommitted from Tennessee, a 4-star safety. And, of course, our early signing period is on the 21st, so we're only 4 days away. Actually, that's 3 days away. It says Smith went to Auburn. And when he got there, he met with Hugh Freeze and the staff, and he's an Alabama guy. So I'm thinking he's kind of wanted to go to Auburn for a while, but, you know, with everything going on there, it's been kind of a mess. So I guess once he met with Hugh Freeze and that group, he must have got a lot more comfortable. Now, Smith was the 222nd ranked player in the country, so, I mean, he was a solid 4-star. And we've still got John Slaughter and Jack Luttrell. And we're going to talk about Jalen McCullough here in a minute. All right, well, it turns out he has committed to Auburn. As you can see right there, it says hard commit as of today. As you can see, he was a 4-star. There he is, 222, number 17 player in the state of Alabama.
Alabama!
So that takes care of that real quick. Now, is that something to get all worried about? Not really. You know, you're talking about 25 recruits. You're going to lose 1 or 2. That's just the way it is. So it's not the end of the world. It's not like it's not like we lost a 5-star, you know. But you know, it's unfortunate, but it also opens up another spot for a person out of the transfer portal or something along those lines, or another commit. But we did get some good news here with Jalen McCullough. And on his Twitter account, he teased that he may be coming back for another year at Rocky Top. And in his Instagram, actually it was an Instagram, he talks all about all the things that he wanted to do here. And then he said that there's still 1 more degree and 2 championships that I set out to achieve once I came here. Let's go get them. So let's go get them tells me he's coming back. And he's been an excellent player for us. McCullough's been rock solid as far as really been kind of a tackling machine out there, and he's done a really good quality job all year. He did have that one problem where somebody came into his apartment and there was an altercation, and he got in trouble for that, but he did get cleared over it. And other than that, you know, he's been a quality player for the Vols, and really no issues outside of that I'm aware of. So I think him coming back is really helpful to us and will solidify that secondary, and that's somewhere where we really need help. As you know, our secondary was our Achilles heel this year. It really hurt us pretty badly. I think we were wound up over 100th in secondary defense, like 114th or something. It was terrible, almost 300 yards a game. And that was really unfortunate because the defense improved quite a bit. I think we went from about 77th in scoring down to about 40th, from about 27 points a game down to 20. So it was a real nice improvement from the defense from the year prior. The problem was we still have a secondary issue. And while we were recruiting hard in that area with cornerbacks, safeties, all of that, I still think we're going to need some out of the transfer portal. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. But having Jalen say he's going to stay definitely sort of evens things out for us a little bit.
I'll meet somebody else. Sure, see, things always even out for me.
That's right. Sometimes you just got to break even. All right, now let's talk about the transfer portal. And I said I'd tell you my theory on what's going on with it. As you know, there's over 1,000 players out there that have entered the transfer portal. And there's only a little over 100 that have actually committed to a school. So, you know, you're talking about less than 10% really when it's all said and done so far. And I think there's a very clear reason why. And it has everything to do with the early signing period, which starts on the 21st. And I think that's really got the coaches very focused on that. Now, we do have players visiting and doing a lot of that, but I think they're a little bit concerned right now about spooking the recruits and scaring them by, you know, having these mature, experienced players commit to their team if it's recruiting over them. That's right. It could scare them. It really could, because here's the deal. And many of you have been fishing before. Let me tell you something. When you get a big fish on that line, the last thing you want to do is start messing around and not staying focused on it. Because if you lose concentration, you might lose a lunker, and that's the last thing you want to do. You might have a 10-pounder out there. Next thing you know, it's off the hook, and you're like, oh. That's right. You got to keep that line taut. And Josh Heupel's got a lot of lines out there, and he's got a lot of lunkers, as you know. A lot of really good players, and he needs to keep those lines as tight as he can and not freak them out.
You're going to need a bigger boat.
That's right. You need a bigger boat. Now, the Vols have not been resting on their laurels by any stretch when it comes to transfer portal. As you know, we've already picked up 3 guys, but none of these guys are going to scare away any recruits because they were big-time positions in need, and there's plenty of room in these areas, with the exception of the one, which is kicker, which we weren't going to scare anybody off by picking up a kicker anyway. And the kicker we picked up was Charles Campbell. He kicks for a very high percentage. He's over 70% on average. He's made every extra point I think he's ever attempted in college football, and he's real good under pressure, and he's shown that many times, and he's good over 50 yards. So he's got a big leg, which will be nice on kickoffs. We also picked up McCullough Castles, who is a big-time tight end. He's actually an NFL prospect. They've got him going as high as the 3rd round, and he's a combine freak. The guy is so fast. At 6'5", he's about 250 pounds, and he runs a 4.6 40, which is crazy fast. That's why the NFL's interested in him. Given the fact that we need 2 tight ends, it's not like bringing him in is going to scare off another tight end because we really need 2. We already lost one in the transfer portal. One's going to graduate, and we don't even know if the other one's coming back. So we could definitely use an additional tight end. And lastly, we picked up Larry Johnson about a week ago. Now, this guy's huge. He is 6'7", 350 pounds, and he's about as big as you'll ever see on an offensive line.
Enormous. It's gigantic. They said it was big, but I didn't expect it to be big.
That's right. He's huge. And he's a freshman, so, he's only had 1 year experience so far. So I think he's really a developmental player that they need to really work with. But, he's got big-time upside. He's got NFL skills. It's just a matter of whether or not they can bring it out of him. And this weekend, we have an offensive lineman in a Johnny Cornelius, and this guy's a monster too. He's 6'5", 310, and he's only allowed 1 sack in 500 snaps, that would be an awesome tackle to have because we really need a couple of tackles. So they're working hard on this and trying to get this guy to commit. But I think if he does, it'll be after the early signing period. We also had this big dude come in, and this is Andre Carrick, and he's a sophomore, and he's out of Texas, and he's 6'5", 306 pounds, and he's played in every game this year for Texas. So, he's not a backup. And he's a former 4-star, so this would also be a nice tackle to pick up as well. And, of course, we're trying to get a couple of wide receivers. I know we've offered the guy from Missouri, the guy from UCF. They're talking to a guy from Oregon right now. A lot of this is going to happen, again, after the early signing period because once you get a bunch of these guys signed, they'll be able to be a little bit more, aggressive. And then realize also there's going to be a spring portal. And the spring portal is going to have a lot of players in it because – understand that once they go through spring practice, there's going to be an understanding of a pecking order at every position, and you're going to know I'm 1st string, I'm 2nd string, I'm 3rd string, or whatever. And all those guys that are 3rd string, unless they're true freshmen, they're going to enter the transfer portal. And there's going to be a ton of quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, a bunch of guys who feel like, hey, I'm low on the totem pole at this particular school, whether it's Georgia, Alabama, all those places. And you're going to be shocked at how many players there are available in the spring. And really, that's going to be useful for the Vols because we need help at cornerback. And yes, look, we've got some really good players coming in this recruiting class. There's no doubt about that. I don't question that at all. But we're going to need some experienced help as well. And I think the spring portal will be very helpful for the Vols because we'll know where our weaknesses are and where we need to fill in some spots. And it'll allow some players that are really deep in the depth chart at maybe some big-time school that's really full at one particular position, it'll give them the opportunity to play somewhere instead of sitting on the bench, which as a former Division I player myself, that is one of your biggest fears is, am I going to get to play? Because if you go to a big-time school, you might be great from where you're from, but when you go to one of these big dogs, one of these SEC schools, you're just another guy. And that's no fun for an athlete that has spent their whole life working on their skills and they don't get to display it. Just thought I'd cover those two players there, and of course a little update on the transfer portal. Like I said, I think we're going to see a lot of movement after the 21st and going into January. So expect a lot of movement at that point from really a lot of schools. And if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Let's me know to continue to cover the Vols, transfer portal, and all that good stuff. And if you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button. If you would, I'd appreciate it. And if you want to see a video on Nico and the quarterbacks we have here at the Vols, it's right here. And if you want to subscribe, it's right here. Anyway, I hope you did like the content. We'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.